We're the Cooking Family, and I'm Rachel. Tonight, we are making creamy ginger butternut squash soup. It is one of our favorite holiday soups, and we like its creaminess, the ginger, the apples, and the squash flavor. We just love everything about it. We're going to be using 3 pounds of butternut squash, or about a medium-sized one, a large red onion, 2 medium-sized Granny Smith apples, some nutmeg, about an ounce of ginger, 3 tablespoons of butter, 6 cups total of chicken broth, and 2 cups of cream. So here we go. Let's get started, and we're all going to take our things to our stations.
You go with Miriam. So I am going to start with the butternut squash. I don't know if you have ever bought butternut squash, but it is a great ingredient and it's really cheap. And in North America, it's ripe around this time of year. So this one, for example, we got at Trader Joe's yesterday for $1.79. It's a lot of food for $1.79. This one is about 2.5 pounds. Abigail, will you take Lydia?
Yes.
So I wanted to show you, though, because for this recipe, you want about 3 pounds. And there is a big variation in sizes of butternut squash. So you can see this one is about 4.5 pounds. This one is about 2.5 pounds. So you're going to want something about in the middle of this. Or if you use the big one because you want a large batch of soup, just be extra generous with your ingredients, like choose a larger onion or a little bit larger apples. But if you want on the less amount of soup side, you can go with a smaller butternut squash. So we're going to use this one. Actually, no, I'm going to use this one. But I also wanted to show you that apples have a big variation as well in their sizes. So these are about 4 to 5 ounces each, so we're using about a half a pound of apples. And if you have a very large apple, sometimes a large apple is almost a pound. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do this. This squash right here will fit in my Instant Pot in the 6-quart. You can see here I did one earlier whole. But this will fit all the way in this Instant Pot. So this one, though, the big one will not. So the way that I deal with that is I'm going to hand you this. I'm going to wash this squash. I'm going to peel off the sticker, which is not working too great. It got wet. And then I'm going to get my knife and my cut glove. So I really prefer to put it in whole to the Instant Pot, and it will cook all the way through so that you could cut it and it'll be nice and soft, and we'll see that in just a second. But if you have to cut it smaller, I like to cut it this way first because my knife can actually go all the way across it. But you have to use quite a bit of force, so I don't let my kids do this job at all. And you can see I'm having to push down pretty hard, and that's why I really prefer not to cut these at all, if I can avoid it. So there's the end. I need my trash bowl. And now I'm going to go straight down vertically, but it's situated so it's not wobbling at all. Just going straight down. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this. It will go through the bottom end if you have a good big sharp knife. And I really like this one. Okay. Next, I need my spoon. Now, I choose a sharp spoon. This one actually is a really cheap spoon that we got at the drugstore. But it happens to have kind of a sharp edge. So I like to use it for pulling the seeds and pulp out of any squash. So I'm going to just carve this out just like a pumpkin. Carve these seeds out, and we are just going to throw this into our bowl. This is our trash bowl. If your kids want to make squash seeds, you can do the same. You can roast these with seasoning and a little bit of oil or butter on them, and they're really delicious. Great thing to do for a snack, but that's not what we're doing tonight. So we're just carving out this pulp, and there we go. Okay, now I'm going to place this inside the Instant Pot on the trivet. So it just goes straight down in. You are going to want your trivet so that later you can pull that out. And then don't forget your water. You always use at least 1 cup of water anytime you're steaming anything in your Instant Pot. And then we're going to close the lid. You want to check your ring and make sure it's seated properly. Close the lid. Check the valve to make sure it's on sealing. And then I'm choosing the manual program, but some newer models have a pressure cook program. And I'm going to do mine for 15 minutes. If your timer does not say 15 minutes, you use the plus and minus buttons to adjust the time. And then you just wait, and it'll beep when it starts. Okay. Now, if you would turn on, Abigail's going to turn on the Instant Pot so that it's sauteing. Oh, you're right. Okay. Here, will you take this, baby girl?
I will. Here, you can.
You take that lid. There we go. Okay, so we're going to pull out. So the first thing you're going to want to do is cook the butternut squash, and we've already cooked one. This is what it looks like when it comes out. We have let this cool off a lot, so we can even touch it. But right when it comes out, you cannot touch it at all. It's extremely hot, so you'll want to do that earlier in the day. And then there's going to be some excess water left over after your butternut squash, and you just want to pour that out. It may have some wax in it from the butternut squash. So you don't even have to wash it or rinse it unless it has a lot of that wax. But we're going to go ahead and turn it on to saute so that this is preheating, and now we're going to do our onion. So, Rachel, you go right ahead.
Okay, so here is how our family chops onions. The first thing we do is look at this at the end of the onion, the root end, and usually it'll have a lot of fuzzy roots coming out of here. And those tend to get caught up in our food, and they don't taste very good. So I'm just going to barely slice off all of that stuff. Where I'm leaving the root end still mostly intact. I'm just cutting off the fuzziness because we don't like to eat that in our food. And then the next thing, I'm going to cut off about 1/4 inch off the stem end, and that gives it some legs so it doesn't wobble around so much, and it just cuts off the excess peel. And then I'm going to cut it straight down the middle, right in half. And then the way we peel it is we just peel off this top layer. And if it's difficult to peel, then just go 1 layer deeper and it will be easier. And so you just do that to both sides. And like I said, if it's difficult to peel by itself, just go down 1 layer further. And then I'm going to take this knife and I'm going to put the point in first. And then slice across, like rays of the sun, all the way throughout the whole thing.
And notice she's keeping the root end intact so it holds everything together. Sometimes you'll be cutting an onion and it just completely falls apart on the cutting board, and then you're just kind of, what do you do then? cutting individual pieces, but that root end holds the whole thing together so that you can cut quickly and easily.
And you don't have to mince this onion because it's going to get chopped up in a blender anyway. So it's okay if it's not completely fine. And then when it gets down to where it's getting a little bit difficult to cut, you just throw that part away, and then I'm going to scoop this up, put it in our food bowl so Abigail can saute it. And I'm just going to repeat exactly the same with the other half.
Okay, so we are going to add the butter now to the Instant Pot. Right now it's on saute, and it's been preheating. And I'm just going to put this lid here. So you'll hear it start to sizzle. And so butter has some water and dairy content. It's kind of has some milk proteins in it. And that water foams up when you first put it into a hot skillet or pot. And you want to wait until that water all evaporates, or that milk all evaporates out, and just leaves, it stops foaming then, and it'll be almost turning brown at that point. And then it's going to get really pretty and caramely, and that gives us so much flavor. It's wonderful taste, and it also smells delightful when you're frying an onion in butter. Okay, so now we're going to put the onion in. Hannah, you want to help me? We're going to put this onion in. Do you see the color of the butter? Oh my goodness! Oh, she's fallen off her stool. There you go. The Instant Pot is really hot, baby, so make sure you don't touch that edge. Okay. And when we saute our aromatics, it's always a good idea to layer in some salt at this point. So Abigail's going to put in a half a teaspoon of salt. I love this little wooden measuring spoon because it is about a quarter teaspoon little scoop, and it just is just the right amount to add just a touch of salt. Okay, so over here Rachel's going to be working on our ginger. This recipe calls for 1 ounce of ginger, and that's about this size. But at the store, it comes in sections like this, and you can just break off the size piece that you want. And so this is the size that we want. And we used our kitchen scale to measure the 1 ounce. Ginger is a root, and so it possibly is going to be a little bit dirty, but you can wash it. But if you don't want to, this brown peel is perfectly edible. You'll just want to make sure it's nice and clean before you use it. And in our recipe, it's going to get all chopped up in the Vitamix. So Rachel's just going to kind of rough peel it and just get some of that peel off, but not worry about getting every little tiny piece off. It's no big deal.
Is that good?
That's great.
Okay, and then next, the way we chop it is I'm just going to cut it in half using a locomotion method. And then I'm going to turn it on its side and then chop it again. And then I'm just going to lay this all flat and chop it in pieces. And like Mommy said, it's going to get all chopped up in the blender, so it's okay if it's not super tiny. And then that's how we chop our ginger.
And the ginger smells amazing. If you could only be here and smell it. Smell-o-vision. Smells really great. Fresh ginger just has so much more flavor and such a brighter flavor than powdered ginger, which you could easily use. So, are the onions kind of browning?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, Rachel's going to work on the apples now.
Okay, so we're going to chop up our apples by just cutting them in half one way and then in half the other way. And then my mom is going to cut off the core with a paring knife.
Yes.
And I'm just going to do the same thing with that other one.
Pass the baby. This is how we cook with a baby. So I'm just taking this core and carefully coring it and putting it in our food bowl. We like to leave the peels on for this recipe. They have a lot of good nutrients and fiber in them, so we don't worry about leaving the peel on, but if that is something you want to take off, feel free. But you will not even know it's in there. We use a Vitamix, so it completely takes care of all the little pieces and chunks of anything. It just makes it completely smooth. So you will not even notice the peel. Okay, next we are going to put these apples in, Hannah. Oh wait, before that, I want you to see the caramelization that's going on here. It's kind of starting to brown, and we're going to wait just a second while that continues to brown just a little bit more. Meanwhile, we can start the butternut squash. So here I've got the one that we had already cooked, and Elijah's going to come, and he is going to grate up the nutmeg, and then he and Miriam are going to work on this butternut squash. So nutmeg is such a great flavor that we just love in our family. And we like to buy it in these little nuts, and you can buy them in the bulk grocery section or in your spice section. But if your grocery store has bulk spices, that's the cheapest way to go on these. And then when you grate it, it smells so much fresher than it is in the jar. But the jarred kind is also great, no big deal. But you might try the nut sometime and just compare. So good. Oh, boy, wait. You need to put your cut glove on, please. Gotta work on that. Came by airmail. Okay. And the onions are still working over here, getting nice and brown. Love that browned onion and butter flavor. So delicious. Okay, so the amount we're going for here of nutmeg is a big healthy pinch, maybe almost a teaspoon. It just kind of depends on how much you like your nutmeg, but we love it. Okay, I think that's pretty good, boy. And so Hannah and I are going to put that in the pot. Really carefully sprinkle that in. There it went.
Burned me.
Oh no,
My
you.
hand.
Okay, don't
Are we ready
touch
for the apple?
hand. And we're ready for the apple. Did you want to see it one more time before we? Do you see how brown this onion is getting? And the ginger is getting brown. So Hannah, don't touch the edge of the pot here. Okay.
Whoa.
Then the next step is we're going to add some chicken broth that we actually made earlier this week. Don't lick it. We're going to add a good cup of chicken broth in here. And since that pot is so warm, it's already starting to boil. Just give that a little stir. And then we are going to close this up and cook the apple for this mixture just cooks now for 1 minute. Well, it cooks under pressure for 1 minute. So we're going to put on the lid. And we are going to press cancel. So it's been sauteing. We're going to press cancel. And that turns the whole thing, just kind of resets everything. We're going to go up on this is the Instant Pot Ultra, but we're going to go up and choose pressure cook. Some machines will be manual, some will be pressure cook, but this one is pressure cook, and we want it just for 1 minute. On the Ultra, the way that you select the time is press the button, and then that selects the mode, and then it starts highlighting the time. And then you're going to press that, and it starts flashing, and you turn the dial to change the minutes. We just want 1 minute, and then we're going to press it. We just go ahead and check the pressure. Get yourself in the habit of checking the pressure. Yes, we want it on high pressure. We do not want it to delay, and we want it to keep warm. And then we're going to press start. And we're going to wait for this to heat up and cook those wonderful aromatics. So now is the butternut squash time. So this butternut squash has been cooked earlier, and it fit inside the Instant Pot, so I went ahead and put it all in there. This is my favorite easy way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and watch how easy this is compared to when I cut it earlier. It's just like cutting butter because it's already been cooked completely. Thank you, baby. And then this side, I'm going to go ahead and cut off that stem. So easy to cut it now. And then, okay, this side, remember, is going to have the seeds and pulp in it. Okay. So, when you open that up, it's going to have those seeds and pulp in it, and you're just going to want to, again, spoon those out right into your trash bowl. It comes out pretty easily, much easier actually than when I did the other one. I was really having to scrape on the other one, but when it's already cooked, it comes out very easily. This is also the way I do spaghetti squash because, again, I really don't like wrestling with a big old hard squash. So I throw spaghetti squash right in the Instant Pot just the same way. Usually those fit, and then when you take it out, sometimes it'll split inside, and then you don't even have to cut it in half. You can just scrape out the seeds just like I did and then scrape out the pulp. It's awesome. Okay, so Miriam and Elijah are going to start scraping out butternut squash. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you a second about the broth that we are using in this recipe. And they're going to be really careful to not get the skin in the pot, in the bowl. The chicken broth that we are using is broth that we made ourselves at home in the Instant Pot, and you can find that recipe at our website at thecookingfamily.com. But the batch I did for this recipe, I threw into the Instant Pot in less than 2 minutes yesterday, and I highly encourage trying to make your own chicken broth because it's so easy, it's practically free, and you know exactly what is inside your chicken broth. We leave ours unsalted because we use it as a building block for many recipes. We use it for soups all the time. And also we're going to use it for Thanksgiving in our dressing and in our gravy. And also we like to drink it sometimes. So since we like to use it in many different ways, we leave it unsalted so that we can adjust it depending on the other ingredients or what we're going to be using our chicken broth for. So I encourage you to make that in your Instant Pot. Just try it. And that is also why you need to be careful. If you use store-bought chicken stock or chicken broth, notice that it's going to have a bunch of salt in it. So in this recipe, you would not want to add salt because your end recipe might be too salty. Okay, how are we doing here? So we have this butternut squash going in. Elijah, will you tell him how old you are?
I am 9 years old.
He is 9. And what is your favorite kitchen job to do?
Probably unloading the dishwasher.
Unloading the dishwasher. You know, part of cooking together as a family is having a messy kitchen. And we end up having a messy kitchen almost all the time because we cook 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for 9 people. And so we're always cleaning up. And we really try to work on cleaning as you go, learning what items have to be really, really washed. And so there are some items that can just be rinsed so you can save yourselves a few steps. So Elijah's job right now is to unload the dishwasher, which is perfect for him. He's really good at it. And Miriam, what's your favorite kitchen job? It can be a cooking job or a cleanup job.
Probably washing the dishes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Why have dishes ever done?
So, yeah. We've been washing lots of dishes, haven't we? What? So, we're almost done with this butternut squash, and our Instant Pot has now come to pressure, and it's cooking the onions, ginger, apples, and nutmeg, all those good flavors that are going into our butternut squash soup. And in just a moment, we're going to be blending up all those ingredients, and this soup is going to come together just in a flash with our Vitamix blender. Do you need a little help there, boy? Okay. So we are being careful not to get the peel in. We're just scraping this out. If you are really busy and it's a busy Thanksgiving week and you don't even want to take the time to do this, there are convenience options for the butternut squash. So they have at some stores, which you can't always find. Some stores will have pre-chopped and frozen butternut squash. And yesterday at Trader Joe's, I think it's because it's Thanksgiving week, they had a big bag of butternut squash that was about 40 ounces. And it was already pre-chopped and peeled. So you just exchange, you just make your decision based on your budget and your time allotment and get whatever works for you and for your family. So our Instant Pot over here is done. And we're going to open it up. This is a quick release. Just as soon as it goes off, you can quick release the pressure. The Ultra has a button, so we're just going to reach around here. You do not want to have your hands close to the vent, but you just reach around, press the button, and it releases the steam. You want to obviously keep your hands and face back away. This usually makes the dogs bark and the little ones howl, and we say it's a steam locomotive coming through the kitchen. If you sometimes you can throw a towel just nearby if you want to not even touch this with your hand, especially on the older models that don't have, on the models that have the, you have to use your finger to turn the valve. You can use a towel to help keep your hand away from that valve. But if you're careful, you will be safe and in good shape. Okay, this is almost done releasing. And I need to make sure I have my pot holders close at hand. You go ahead and put one of these here. And as soon as this is the little float valve that pops up when it's under pressure, and there it just popped down, letting me know that now I can open up the Instant Pot, safely, and that the pot is no longer under pressure. And always be careful. There's hot steam dripping off of this lid, so you want to be careful where you put it. And it has these little leaves that you can put it in to keep it out of the way, because this lid is very hot. That it's going to be in our way there, and so I'm just going to set it aside. And then you can see how those apples are completely cooked in 1 minute of pressure cook time. So now I'm going to pull this up out of here, and we're going to go back to our blender where Abraham is patiently waiting for this pot, and he's going to carefully transfer this apple mixture, and I'm going to help him. We're just going to since we want all this to be a blended smooth puree, I'm going to pull all the little pieces out with my rubber spatula. And wipe off the little edge. And there you go. Okay, so now we're going to put it up on the Vitamix base, put the lid on. And remember, whatever you do, this is extremely hot here. So you just want to be very careful while you're blending hot ingredients. So now we're going to just transfer this right back into the Instant Pot insert very carefully. I always think it's amazing that this turns so white when you blend it up. In this case, it's kind of purplish pinkish because we use that purple onion, but if you use a white or yellow onion, this will be almost white. And there we go. So we're going to take this back over here, and this has even cooled off quite a bit. Don't turn it on quite yet. And now we're going to blend up the butternut squash. Let's put this down here. It's going to be easier to pour into. We do this in 2 batches. And we have found that it's much easier to blend anything if you put your liquid in first, because then the blender just is able to get that liquid moving easily, and it doesn't get all stuck on your solid ingredients. So we like to put our chicken broth in first and then put the squash in on top of that. And we're doing it in 2 batches because if it gets over full, it's just harder to do and ends up taking longer. So go ahead and do this. That looks great. Here, let me move this jar. Fantastic. And this is not hot at this point. So Abraham's going to take it and put it into the Instant Pot. He's going to pour it right in there. Okay, and now the next round. Remember, keep it down there because it's just so much easier. You can also, when your chicken broth, this is room temperature, but when it's cold, there is a layer of fat on the top, and you can peel that fat right off of your chicken broth, no problem. And there we go. I highly recommend, if you are a foodie person, if you don't already have a Vitamix, to get one. It's such a different helpful tool than any other blender I've ever tried. There he goes. It's going to get loud. And there you go. That's the end of this blending. We're going to pour that into the Instant Pot. And Abigail's going to stir it. And that is basically your butternut squash soup. At this point, we are going to pressure cook this for 4 minutes on soup. We choose soup because it's the Instant Pot is actually set to heat up a little bit slower and more gently on soup setting. Oh, and actually it's on pressure cook, so I'm going to switch it to soup. So we just press cancel, it's no problem. And then we turn this knob and select soup, press it in. And it's already on 4 minutes, and we're just going to press start. And I'm going to check, hold on baby. I just noticed that the seal is not quite all the way in place. You'll always want to check that anytime you're cooking in your Instant Pot, because you want to make sure it's nice and seated the right way. And then just turn your lid. There it goes. And this model is the Ultra, and it automatically stays, it automatically releases the valve and puts it on sealing every time you put the lid on. But a lot of models don't have that feature, so you'll always want to check your valve and make sure that it is on sealing when you want it to pressure cook. And so earlier we put on a batch of, oh, I wanted to say, oh, we are pressure cooking this again. So yes, everything is already cooked in here, but we're pressure cooking it again to just really, it's almost like mashing in those flavors and bring it together to make it such a very flavorful soup, so that the ginger and apples and onions are really flavoring the butternut squash well. And so our last ingredient is cream. It's also one of our favorites. Earlier we did a pot of this soup up to the point that you just saw. And so this has been pressure cooked for the 4 minutes like we just showed you. And this is the step if you want to make your soup ahead of time for Thanksgiving, because you know you have a really busy week coming with a lot of cooking, or even if this is a huge quantity for you and you'd like to save more for another time, at this point is when you would freeze the soup. So for example, for Thanksgiving this week, I might freeze this batch and just have it in the freezer ready to go, and then get it out Wednesday night, and then allow it to thaw, and then Thursday morning we would do this final step. But if you're ready to serve it right away, this is what you'll do. So we've got 2 cups of cream, which is quite a decadent amount of cream. But since this is for a holiday celebration, we're going to use all 2 cups. You can adjust that higher. Well, I probably wouldn't need to do higher, but you can adjust that a little lower if that's what you want to do. Another thing you can do is use coconut milk or coconut cream if you want to use less dairy. And you can also substitute butter, ghee for the butter if you want to have this soup completely dairy-free. And so here is our finished pot of butternut squash soup. And I was going to serve some up, and I need a cup to serve it up into, because I have no idea where the ladle is. Like a teacup. My teacups are a good size to ladle soup whenever I can't find the actual ladle. So here we go, right into the bowl. Just looking so beautiful and delicious. Again, this is one of the kids' favorite soups. It has such a sweet taste. The kids love it, and it's creamy. The ginger is a nice warm flavor. And we like to top it off with a little bit of black pepper, maybe even cayenne for Mommy and Daddy. And there you have it, creamy ginger butternut squash soup. We hope you enjoy it, and we hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving, celebrating with your family one of the best meals of the whole year. Have a wonderful evening and a wonderful holiday.
Bye.
Bye.